Welcome back. In its bid to achieve a peace settlement in the Middle East, the U.S. has thrown its weight behind efforts to achieve that end. In July, President Bush called for an international meeting to discuss efforts to restart peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians later this year. This is how he presented his vision.
We're all going to do more to build the conditions for peace, so I will call together an international meeting this fall of representatives from nations that support a two-state solution, reject violence, recognize Israel's right to exist, and commit to all previous agreements between the parties. The key participants in this meeting will be the Israelis, the Palestinians, and their neighbors in the region. Secretary Rice will chair the meeting. She and her counterparts will review the progress that has been made toward building Palestinian institutions.
Well, joining us again are our guests in Nablus, Abdus-Sattar Qasim, Professor of Political Science at Nablus University. In Tel Aviv, Mordechai Kedar, Professor at Bar Ilan University. And in Washington, Ziad Assali, he's the President of the American Task Force on Palestine. Abdus-Sattar Qasim, if I could come to you, this conference set for November, what are the Palestinian thoughts about it and the timing of the conference?
First, Amran, let me say that your Israeli guest is not skillful in history. I think he should go back to his holy book, the Torah, the Old Testament, to learn that the Canaanites were hundreds of years before the Hebrews, and they built civilizations, and they built their own kingdoms, and there were centers for these kingdoms. These Canaanites are Arab Semites. So he should be careful in stating some falsifications concerning history.
All right, so that could be the topic of another program altogether, but you've had an opportunity to refute it. Let's look a bit further forward to November now in this particular peace conference.
Okay, that's fine, but I have an obligation to say that. Now, as far as the conference is concerned, I don't think that is going to bring anything new. And it is a conference of a repeated activity that produced nothing fruitful for the Palestinians. And I don't think that's going to bring anything fruitful. This conference is going to concentrate mainly on the security of Israel and on the daily life of the Palestinians. If the Palestinians regard the Israeli security and stand on the doors of the Israeli kingdom, serving the Israeli security, then they will be receiving the loaf of bread. In other words, Mr. Bush is trying very hard with Israel to diminish the Palestinian cause into a loaf of bread. So I am not making high expectations of this conference.
Ziad Assali in Washington, what do you make of the timing of this particular conference? Some cynics would say that it's Bush trying to go out with a bang, as did Bill Clinton towards the end of his tenure.
Well, I hope so, frankly. I hope that the objectives of the president, both political for his own legacy and for his country, and the national interest of the United States coincide in moving the Palestine-Israel conflict into resolution. I do not personally expect any huge breakthroughs in November, but I view it as a positive step forward. I think people have gotten used to the idea that nothing works, and they have developed rather negative and cynical expectations. It is worthwhile to pursue this effort. It is very much worthwhile to have Olmert and Abu Mazen meet and explore, and it is right for the international community to go on supporting complete end to the occupation and establishing a state of Palestine to live alongside Israel in peace. Any movement in that direction should be welcome. People have always cast aspersions on the motivation of politicians and their ability to deliver. Well, that is not enough. What options do we actually have? Do we have a war option? No, we don't, and we shouldn't. We should have a negotiation option. And cynical people, both the Israeli and Palestinian side, have gotten used by just saying the easy thing. It won't work, and that means continuation of the status quo. Well, the status quo means occupation continues. That is not acceptable.
Mordechai Kedar, one is assuming that the point of reference for this particular conference will be President Bush's own roadmap for peace. What do you think about the roadmap, and where does it stand at the moment? Is it valid at the moment?
I think that the roadmap was born sick, and during the time it really died, mainly because of what happened within the Palestinian arena, the cleavage between Gaza and the West Bank, between Hamas and Fatah, and the fact that there is actually no one in the Palestinian arena which can take decisions and implement them on the ground. What concerns me about this conference...
But sir, essentially, in the initial stages, I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, but Israel had 14 caveats or reservations about the roadmap, which effectively rendered it null from the beginning. That's what made it sick, isn't it so?
From the beginning, America and the others ignored the 14 Israeli reservations, and I think that not even in Israel there is somebody who remembers those reservations. So those reservations are not existing, were not in the beginning, and they have no influence. However, this conference will give a very big motivation to all those who oppose any process to come out with terrorist attacks in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem or elsewhere, in order to kill more and more Jews, just in order to prove that they are the masters of events in the Middle East and not those who come from behind the Atlantic to make some peace here in the Middle East. And this is what really concerns us here in Israel, the security vis-a-vis the terrorist attacks which might come in the background of this conference.
Abdus-Sattar Qasim, do you agree? Do you believe that there may be terrorist groups, fringe groups within the Palestinian territories that would try to hijack and sabotage the November conference?
Well, the problem is not what is called Palestinian terrorism. The problem is with the Israeli aggressions here. Just 2 hours ago, 3 Palestinian children were killed by the Israeli army. How would Mr. Bush react to this? If they were 3 Israeli children, I think the whole world will be talking about it. But since they are Palestinians, nobody would talk about it. That's why. That's a prime reason that we don't trust neither the Israelis nor the Americans. Mr. Bush is not a trustworthy person. He is a bloody killer. He has been killing Arabs, Muslims, and Palestinians everywhere. How would he bring peace? You can request peace from those who are peaceful, from those who are lovers, from those who love the human beings. But as long as they love to kill, they have been spreading fright everywhere. How would they make peace? That's why I don't think that Israel or the United States are serious about making peace or giving the Palestinians any of their national rights. They might be concerned about some daily Palestinian rights or rights that have to do with their own daily life. But as long as the national rights, I think they negate them. That's why I think it's good for the Palestinians to go back to their Arab and Islamic nations so as to regain some power, so they would be able to talk seriously about peace in the international community.
All right, Abdus-Sattar Qasim, I'm going to have to interrupt you. I'm sorry, sir. We seem to have run out of time on the program. Abdus-Sattar Qasim, Mordechai Kedar, and Ziad Asali, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you so much, the viewer, for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Bye-bye.